Shalom family, viewer update. The Benaiah Israel channel is moving over to Rumble. Please join us over on our new platform. You can find a link in the description to our new Rumble channel called Hidden Hebrews. Hope to see you there, family. Shalom.
The reason I've asked to sit with both of you is what looks like a spike in anti-Semitic and racist activities or manifestations. Now, New York seems to be at the center, or at least getting the attention. Where do you see it? How do you see it?
Well, I've had a lot of meetings with the police department and last week with the mayor to talk about this. There is a wave, there's no question about it.
I don't know if it's attached to the time of the year, maybe attached to the presidential election. I'm not quite sure why we're saying it here.
A spike in anti-Semitism. Sound familiar? Well, in this film called Defamation, an Israeli journalist attempts to document the many growing cases of anti-Semitism reported by the ADL. And to do this, he visits the office of the ADL in New York and films his interaction with the ADL representatives in hope of recording and documenting the many cases of anti-Semitism reported, as previously stated by the ADL representatives. However, when he asks for examples of the anti-Semitism, they have a little trouble finding the many cases of anti-Semitism. Let's take a closer look.
You have enough resources to deal with all this stuff?
No. We're flooded every day with these things all over the country. It's a very big problem.
According to the ADL reports from the last couple of years, the average number of anti-Semitic incidents in the US is around 1,500 a year. I'm hoping Joel Levy can help me find a case I'll be able to follow.
What I'd like to do is to follow a case.
I understand, yeah.
Every film needs like a drive. Once we have like a case that we can follow, so that would be great.
We're going over the fresh data collected over the last couple of weeks to see if there's anything I will be able to film.
And it is here where the ADL representative attempts to locate the many anti-Semitic cases from the last 2 weeks.
We have received in the last week or so someone who employment case, someone who wasn't able to take days off for the holiday, someone who is a school teacher and wanted days off for Shavuot, someone who is a nursing student and had some issues with taking time off, as well as with taking time off. We also got a phone call from someone who was complaining about a website that had anti-Semitic remarks on it. Someone who was complaining about an article in the newspaper who they thought had anti-Semitic undertones. And that seems to be the roundup.
And that's what we've had in the last 2 weeks. Those are the kinds of incidents that we've had recently. 5 in 2 weeks. So there's no way to predict.
Let's see, that's 5 cases in the last 2 weeks. That's 5 cases in the last 2 weeks. So if we do the math, and there's approximately 52 weeks in a year. So if we multiply 5 cases times 26 weeks, which would represent 5 cases every 2 weeks, that would be an average of let's see here, 130 cases per year. That's interesting. Something doesn't seem to add up.
There wasn't anything suitable from the last 2 weeks. So Joel Levy tries to help me to find a case.
What they're looking for is an incident that they might be able, and they will do all the contact work, but an incident they might be able to follow, to actually see something that has happened, to go to the site, to talk to people there, to show what has happened, the impact on them, how we interact with all of that, and so on.
Assemblyman Hickind has a lot of Jewish voters in Brooklyn, and he suggested a case for me.
And so, family, of those 5 cases of anti-Semitism that was found in the last 2 weeks, 2 or 3 of those cases involved individuals that were not able to take off from work. One of the cases of anti-Semitism reported involved comments on a website that they believed were anti-Semitic. And then another report of anti-Semitism involved someone complaining about an article in a newspaper which they believed that the article had anti-Semitic undertones. Now, as you can imagine, the Israeli reporter, apparently not satisfied with these 5 cases, was sent to another location, which was said to have better cases or better examples of anti-Semitism. Let's take a closer look.
You know, I had a very interesting case. Just last week, a woman went to a funeral in not too far from here, thousands of people, and she heard a police officer on the phone say something to someone else, something very derogatory about the Jew something to somebody. This woman was at the funeral, she heard this. She was so upset, she wrote me a letter, I could show you the letter, and she called me. Yeah. Okay. Is this the only letter? Yeah. Okay. You want me to read part of it to you? Actually, you could look at it. I overheard a very disturbing conversation that a policeman had on his cell phone. I heard him say very loudly, I wasn't even standing close to him, quote, "I'm just finishing this Jewish."
So, family, what are your thoughts on the types of anti-Semitism cases reported? And how do you believe it compares to racism experienced in the Black community? Or does it compare? Does the Black community even track these types of things within our community? If not, why? And actually, family, before you comment, let's take a look at the reaction of the Israeli reporter after hearing about the last case of anti-Semitism.
Sorry for using this kind of language, but this is the exact quote. I was so offended by the vulgar language, which is never appropriate, etc. And she goes on. I made it that the police officer called the woman. He apologized on the telephone.
Hickin thought it was a good case, but the police wouldn't let the officer go on camera, and the Jewish woman seemed to be satisfied that the policeman had apologized. I realized that it might take some time to find a suitable case to film, and the kids had just finished their preparations, so I had to join them and fly to Poland.
So, family, what do you think? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. And remember, according to the ADL, anti-Semitism occurs if someone simply states that the Jews run Hollywood. Even though the ADL itself created film censorship boards from the very beginning of its founding, with the intent to censor and control the types of films which made it to the big screen. And ironically, we see these same censorship boards endorsing and approving the most racist film against so-called African Americans of all times, Birth of a Nation. And with that, for additional info, check out the video called Black Apocalypse for additional information. And with that, Israel, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And take care, Israel, and Shalom. As you can see, the persecution of the Negro is directly tied to the rebirth and resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. and the rebirth and rise of the Ku Klux Klan occurred in large part to the release of the blockbuster film Birth of a Nation, which was created through the efforts of multiple Ashkenazi contributors. Filmed and partially financed by Billy Bitzer. Wardrobe and finance provided by Robert Goldstein. Partially distributed by MGM's Louis B. Mayer. Shown in theaters managed by Erlanger, Claw, and Sherbert. And apparently approved by B'nai B'rith's ADL, which established itself as the motion picture censor and gatekeeper. All occurring shortly after the racist B'nai B'rith defense team believed B'nai B'rith President Leo Frank was wrongly convicted by the words of a lowly Negro.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been using the pyramid of hate now for decades. It's a sociological model that looks at how hate can evolve and grow into something far worse if you don't interrupt it. I mean, this is basically our theory of change since the beginning. You literally have to interrupt intolerance before it mutates into something far worse. So basically the way that the model works, and we teach it, ADL is one of the largest providers of anti-hate content in the country. We reach kids in classrooms all over America, and we use the pyramid of hate. So at the bottom of the pyramid are biased attitudes, right? This is having bad feelings about someone, stereotyping, fear of differences, that type of thing. A level above that are acts of bias, right? So this could be non-inclusive language that alienates someone, microaggressions, maybe biased or belittling jokes that demean someone based on their race or religion, excluding someone because of their difference. So you have kind of biased attitudes that can then morph into acts that can then morph into systemic discrimination. And this is sort of like disparities in the criminal justice system or inequitable employment opportunities, where the bias becomes, again, systematized across a framework. And then the level up from that is bias-motivated violence, threats, desecration, arson, assault. And then above that is actual genocide. Actually, the act or the deliberate attempt to extinguish a people based on their difference. The deliberate attempt to extinguish a people based on their difference. The deliberate attempt to extinguish a people based on their difference.
The bloody assault of the Ku Klux Klan against the black community continued to rage through the 1920s like a wildfire through a paper mill.